In the late 1990s, inside American electronics stores like Circuit City, the massive wooden speaker cabinet began losing the sales floor to a plastic cube small enough to hold in one hand. For over $2,000, a premium price that could have purchased a serious component stereo, Americans eagerly walked out with the Bose Lifestyle System. The traditional receiver was bypassed. The heavy walnut cabinet was pushed out of the room. Standard copper wire was replaced by proprietary cables hidden inside the walls of newly built suburban homes. The paradox is that the Bose Lifestyle System did not conquer America by winning the acoustic specification war. It conquered the market, despite traditional audiophiles openly despising it. But the real story of this system is not just about an audio company defying traditional hi-fi metrics. It is the story of how the American living room decided that convenience, interior design, and invisible sound were worth more than the perfect stereo image. Every week, we tell the stories of the American speakers, audio brands, and listening rooms that once shaped how people heard music, movies, and memory, and what happened when the market moved on. Subscribe if that history matters to you. The story begins not with nostalgia, but with a specific place in Framingham, Massachusetts in 1987. For decades, the American living room was an acoustic battleground. On one side was the listener, chasing the illusion of a live performance. On the other side was the physical reality of the room itself. Before the late 1980s, the rules of American high fidelity were written in wood veneer and cubic volume. If a listener wanted deep bass, they needed a large woofer, a driver designed to reproduce low frequencies. If they wanted a large woofer, they needed a massive speaker cabinet, the wooden enclosure that holds the drivers and controls the air behind them. There was no escaping the physics. High-quality sound required large furniture. In the suburban homes of the 1970s and early 1980s, the stereo system was a shrine. A silver receiver glowed in the center of a dedicated rack, flanked by two towering wooden boxes. These speakers dominated the floor plan. They dictated where the sofa went. They required thick copper wires running across the carpet. For the dedicated audio enthusiast, this was a necessary sacrifice. But for the average American family, the massive stereo stack was becoming an aesthetic burden. The audio industry even had a cynical term for it: the wife acceptance factor. The friction between the desire for good sound and the refusal to turn a decorated living room into an electronics showroom. The American listener was missing a compromise. They wanted the sound of a concert hall, but they wanted the equipment to disappear. The answer did not come from a traditional speaker company trying to build a slightly smaller wooden box. It came from Framingham, Massachusetts. By the late 1980s, the Bose Corporation, founded by MIT professor Amar Bose, had already established a reputation for defying traditional acoustic measurement. Their famous 901 speaker had proven that American buyers were willing to pay for unconventional design. But the 901, with its dedicated stands and strict room placement requirements, was still a highly visible piece of furniture. Bose realized that the future of mass-market audio did not lie in making the speaker look better. The future lay in making the speaker invisible. To do this, Framingham engineers had to solve the physical problem of bass. Low-frequency sound waves are large. They require a driver to move a significant amount of air. But human hearing struggles to locate the exact source of very low frequencies. High frequencies, like the crash of a cymbal or the breath of a vocalist, are highly directional. You can close your eyes and point to the tweeter, the small driver designed to reproduce high frequencies, but deep bass simply fills the room. In 1987, Bose capitalized on this acoustic loophole by introducing the Acoustimass 5-speaker system. It was a radical deconstruction of the traditional American stereo speaker. Instead of putting the woofer, mid-range, and tweeter into a single large cabinet, Bose separated them. They built a heavy, rectangular enclosure that housed the low-frequency drivers. They called it a base module. This was essentially a passive subwoofer, a speaker dedicated entirely to low notes, but designed to work specifically with its companion pieces. The companion pieces were the shock. Because the base module handled all the heavy lifting of moving air, the remaining frequencies could be handed off to incredibly small drivers. Bose created tiny dual-cube satellite speakers, barely larger than a coffee mug. Inside the base module was a crossover, an electrical network that splits the audio signal, sending the low notes to the hidden woofers and the high notes to the tiny cubes. This technical explanation immediately became a revolutionary listening scene in the American home. A buyer could bring the Acoustimass 5 system into their living room and hide the heavy bass module completely out of sight, shoved behind a curtain, tucked behind a potted plant, or slid under an end table. The tiny cube speakers, which handled the directional sound, were mounted high on the walls or placed discreetly on a bookshelf. When the receiver was turned on, the room filled with massive, impactful sound. The listener's brain heard the deep bass, saw the tiny cubes, and created a powerful illusion. Massive sound was coming from virtually nowhere. The equipment had vanished. The retail impact was immediate. At a launch price of over $1,000, a premium tier in $1987, the Acoustimass 5 was not cheap. Yet, it bypassed the traditional audiophile hesitation. Doctors, lawyers, and suburban homeowners who had previously refused to buy large wooden speakers were suddenly opening their wallets. Bose did not just sell this through traditional hi-fi dealers. They aggressively expanded their presence in mall electronics stores and department stores. They built dedicated, enclosed listening kiosks. A customer would step inside a small, soundproofed room at a local mall. A salesperson would play a dynamic track, letting the booming bass shake the floor. Then, with a dramatic flourish, the salesperson would reveal that the giant speakers in the room were empty boxes, and the actual sound was coming from the tiny cubes hidden in the shadows. It was theater, and it worked flawlessly. Traditional audio engineers and hi-fi magazines were immediately skeptical. They measured the system and pointed out significant gaps in the frequency response, how evenly a speaker reproduces all sounds. They noted that the crossover point left a hole in the lower mid-range. To the audiophile ear, a cello or a deep male voice sounded thin and disconnected. But the American market did not care about the frequency response graph. The market cared about the living room floor plan. Bose had successfully separated the bass from the treble, and in doing so, they had separated high fidelity from large furniture. The Acoustimass system sold hundreds of thousands of units, proving that the American consumer would pay top dollar for aesthetic convenience. But it was still just a speaker system. It still required the user to buy a receiver, connect bare copper wires, and understand how to operate a stereo stack. Framingham realized that to truly own the American living room, they could not just replace the speaker, they had to replace the entire system. The bass module could be hidden under a sofa, and the cubes could blend into the wall. The American living room had just been handed a new acoustic promise: sound that did not require furniture. The success of the Acoustimass 5 was not merely a triumph of marketing. It was a fundamental shift in how the American consumer defined high fidelity. By the early 1990s, Bose was ready to take this experiment to its logical conclusion: the total integration of the home theater experience. Enter the Bose Lifestyle System. If the Acoustimass 5 was a speaker system, the Lifestyle was a manifesto. It was an all-in-one console, a centralized unit that combined a CD player, an AM/FM tuner, and a preamplifier. Designed to look like a piece of high-end home furniture, it ditched the industry-standard silver-faced receiver with its rows of intimidating knobs and switches in favor of a sleek, minimalist, black or silver box. The breakthrough here was the closed-loop ecosystem. In the traditional American hi-fi world, a listener built a system by picking and choosing components: a turntable from one brand, a receiver from another, and speakers from a third. It was a hobby that required knowledge, patience, and space. Bose turned this process on its head. When a customer bought a lifestyle system, they didn't buy components. They bought a completed solution. Every cable, every connector, and every speaker was optimized specifically for that console. This was the plug-and-play era of American audio. The user didn't need to know what an ohm was, or why the impedance, the electrical load a speaker presents to an amplifier, mattered when matching equipment. Bose had already solved the math. This closed system created what the industry called a proprietary trap, but to the average American consumer, it was a lifeline. Consider the price context. In 1993, a standard Lifestyle 5 system retailed for approximately $1,600 to $2,000. In today's money, that is roughly $3,500 to $4,500. A high-end enthusiast could easily spend that much on a single pair of legendary speakers, like the Klipschorn or the JBL L100. But the hi-fi enthusiast's budget didn't include the amplifier, the wiring, or the rack. The Bose Lifestyle price tag included everything. It was a one-stop shop for the theater sound that was just beginning to invade the American living room. The American distribution breakthrough happened in the malls. Bose abandoned the traditional stuffy high-end audio store where a salesperson might look down on a customer for not knowing the specs. Instead, they moved into the high-traffic corridors of America's shopping malls and the electronics departments of big-box retailers like Circuit City and Magnolia. They used a demonstration-first retail strategy. They built soundproofed Bose centers inside these stores. A customer shopping for a new television would be pulled into a small, dark room, sat in a comfortable chair, and treated to an immersive demo. The lights would dim, the volume would swell, and the sound would seemingly come from every direction. The demo was not designed to show off the frequency response, how evenly a speaker reproduces low, middle, and high sounds. It was designed to show off the vibe. This created the American audio moat. Competitors struggled to copy the Lifestyle system because they were still trying to sell separate components. Brands like Klipsch, JBL, and Polk were focusing on the purity of the sound and the quality of the drivers. They were building speakers for people who wanted to sit in the sweet spot, the exact location between two speakers where the stereo image is most perfect. Bose, meanwhile, was building speakers for people who just wanted to watch a movie on a Friday night with their family. They weren't fighting for the audiophile. They were fighting for the living room. By the mid-1990s, the Lifestyle system had been endorsed not just by casual listeners, but by a new wave of home theater installers. These contractors, tasked with wiring the burgeoning media rooms of the McMansion era, loved Bose. The Lifestyle console provided a simple interface, and the Acoustimass cubes could be mounted out of sight in ceilings or corners. It was a contractor's dream. Finish the job in half the time, with zero complaints about sound quality from the homeowner. The metrics were staggering. By the late 90s, Bose was selling hundreds of thousands of these systems annually. They were being stocked in every major retailer across the country, from the coasts to the rural malls in the Midwest. While the rest of the hi-fi industry was bleeding market share to cheap Japanese imports and big-box discounters, Bose was maintaining a premium, non-discounted price point. They had become the Apple of audio, a brand that demanded a premium and rarely went on sale. The badge on the grill of the tiny cubes was no longer just a speaker brand. It was a promise that the living room had been modernized. It was a promise of theater sound without the theater mess. But as the system grew more popular, a quiet, growing frustration began to bubble up within the enthusiast community. The very thing that made the system so easy to own, the proprietary cables and the integrated console, was starting to make it impossible to grow. Yes, I am ready to continue with the next phase of the script. We have successfully established the breakthrough and the shift in the American listening paradigm toward integrated systems. According to our structure, we are now moving into the most critical part of the documentary, the peak of the Bose Lifestyle's dominance and the beginning of the cultural friction that defined it. By the mid-1990s, the Bose Lifestyle System had transcended its status as a piece of electronics and had firmly established itself as an American lifestyle essential. It was no longer just about the sound, it was about the signal it sent. To own a Bose Lifestyle System was to declare that you were living in the modern, sophisticated America of the late 20th century. At its peak, the lifestyle presence was unavoidable. In the suburbs of New Jersey, the townhouses of Chicago, and the sprawling estates of Southern California, the sight of a silver or black lifestyle console sitting on a glass and chrome stand became as common as the television it was paired with. The system turned the American living room toward the television, effectively codifying the home theater era, before the term was even fully understood by the average consumer. The American listening ecosystem was no longer built on component matching or the pursuit of the sweet spot. It was built on the Bose dealer network. Bose had achieved what few audio companies ever managed. They dictated the retail environment. Their dedicated demonstration rooms in major retail chains like Best Buy and Circuit City were engineered to be the most compelling places to shop for audio in America. The rhythm of the Bose retail success was consistent. A shopper would walk in looking for a TV. They would be lured into the Bose demo kiosk, a space that felt intimate, dark, and acoustically optimized. The salesperson, trained in the specific Bose demonstration script, would play a carefully selected demo disc designed to highlight clarity and spaciousness. Then, the reveal, the giant, intimidating speakers currently playing the music would be shown to be empty, and the sound would be revealed to be coming from the tiny cubes in the corner. That specific demonstration moment was the heart of the American audio experience for millions. It sold the system not on specs, but on the impossibility of the physics. But the real scale of the Bose empire was in its integration into the American home's architecture. During the late 90s, the media room became the mandatory addition to the American dream home. Bose partnered with custom home builders and residential installers across the country. They created proprietary cabling systems that allowed for and encouraged the hidden audio setup. Think about the stakes of this shift. In a traditional hi-fi setup, the listener was the master of the equipment. They could move the speakers to improve the soundstage, the perceived width, depth, and placement of music. They could swap out an amplifier to change the character of the bass. But when a home builder ran Bose's proprietary cables through the drywall of a new home, the audio system became part of the foundation. The listener was no longer an enthusiast tuning a system. They were a resident of a pre-configured audio environment. By 1999, Bose was not just a speaker company. They were the dominant audio authority in the American middle-class home. They had successfully built a moat of brand loyalty that was virtually impenetrable. They were the brand that parents bought their children for their first real system. They were the brand featured in the glossy publicity pages of Architectural Digest, where the speakers disappeared into the cabinetry of million-dollar designs. While the audiophile forums were starting to fill with complaints, with the infamous shorthand dismissal, "No highs, no lows, must be Bose," the American consumer was buying with their feet. The scale was massive. We are talking about hundreds of thousands of units sold annually across dozens of product iterations, all tethered to that same, recognizable, proprietary console ecosystem. It was the golden era of the integrated lifestyle home theater, and at the center of it all sat the Bose Lifestyle badge, glowing softly in the dark, signaling that the room had been officially conquered. By the turn of the millennium, the Bose Lifestyle System had become a victim of its own architectural success. The very thing that made it a status symbol, the integration into the American home, was beginning to chafe against the reality of the evolving American entertainment landscape. The peak was visually defined by the Bose Lifestyle 20 and 30 series consoles. These were objects of obsession: brushed aluminum or sleek black finish, a hidden CD changer, and that iconic glowing green VFD display. In the living rooms of the early 2000s, this console didn't just play music, it signaled that the room was smart. But beneath the surface, the American living room was being pulled toward a different standard. The arrival of the DVD format, and later the rise of the HD TV, meant that the home theater was no longer just about sound. It was about visual connectivity. Here was the internal friction. The Lifestyle System was a closed, proprietary universe. While the rest of the industry was adopting standardized HDMI connections and universal inputs, Bose remained committed to its own cabling ecosystem. If a consumer wanted to add a new device, a gaming console, a cable box, or a Blu-ray player, they were often forced to navigate a labyrinth of proprietary Bose adapters and specialized inputs. The stakes were clear for the American homeowner. They had spent thousands of dollars to have the wiring hardwired into their walls, believing it was a permanent installation. But as technology accelerated, the permanent Bose system began to look less like a luxury and more like a legacy anchor. The very cables that installers had touted as clean and invisible were now obsolete, unable to carry the high-definition video signals that the modern television demanded. Yet despite this looming obsolescence, the market presence remained dominant. Even as the audiophile press grew more vocal, and as new competitors like Klipsch and home theater-in-a-box solutions from companies like Sony and Panasonic began to flood the big box aisles, Bose held its ground. They did this through the most sophisticated dealer training program in American audio history. In every major Best Buy in the country, the Bose floor staff wasn't just selling a speaker. They were selling a solution to a problem the customer didn't know they had. They framed the messy, multi-receiver, wire-tangled systems of the past as the old way, and the Lifestyle System as the only way. The emotional peak of the Lifestyle brand wasn't found in a recording studio or a professional theater. It was found in the sheer number of American households that had, for the first time in their lives, been convinced to spend pro money on convenience gear. It was the ultimate consolidation of the American middle-class listening habit. From the suburban basements of the Midwest to the high-rise apartments of New York City, the Lifestyle System became the default. It had turned the chaotic hobby of hi-fi into the static utility of an appliance. But a market that rewards appliance-like convenience is also a market that treats hardware like a disposable tool, because the system was so integrated when one part of the console failed, or when a new technology emerged that the proprietary ports couldn't handle, the entire system became a liability. The dealer who had sold the dream was now the one breaking the news that the system couldn't be upgraded. It had to be entirely replaced. The agreement between the listener and the brand had shifted. It was no longer about the joy of listening. It was about the peace of mind of having a system that just worked. And for a time it did. But the foundation of that agreement was beginning to crack. The living room was no longer the end of the line for American audio. It was about to become the site of a radical, wireless disruption. The long decline of the Bose lifestyle empire did not begin with a catastrophic failure. It began with a small, quiet, and seemingly insignificant crack in the agreement between the brand and the American consumer. For years, the Lifestyle System had been the ultimate set-it-and-forget-it audio appliance. But as the 2000s progressed, the living room environment began to shift beneath Bose's feet. The industry was standardizing. High-definition television was arriving, and with it, a new standard for connectivity, HDMI. It was a single, universal cable designed to carry both high-quality video and audio. Bose, however, was still committed to its proprietary world. Their lifestyle consoles relied on custom, multi-pin connectors that were designed for an era of analog video and standard definition signals. When American homeowners started buying their first flat-panel HD TVs, they hit an unexpected wall. They discovered that they couldn't simply plug their new, crisp, high-definition cable box or game console into their expensive, modern Bose system. The system that was supposed to be the easiest to use in the world suddenly became a nightmare of adapters, converters, and manual switching. This was the first small crack, the realization that the Bose proprietary trap was no longer a feature of convenience. It was a barrier to progress. The dealer who had sold the dream was now the one breaking the news that the system couldn't be easily upgraded. It had to be entirely replaced to keep up with the changing television. The retreat began slowly. Dealers, those trusted local shops and department store specialists, started to notice a shift in customer sentiment. The wife acceptance factor that had been Bose's greatest weapon was now being leveraged against them. A Bose system was still small and aesthetically pleasing, but it was now also seen as the system you can't add to. At the same time, a new, disruptive competitor was quietly gathering strength: the soundbar. For the average American listener, the soundbar was the final evolution of the Bose dream. If Bose had taught the American public that they didn't need 5 speakers and a giant receiver to enjoy movies, the soundbar took that lesson and simplified it even further. It offered a single, long cabinet that sat beneath the television, replacing the console, the 5 cubes, the base module, and the miles of proprietary wiring. It didn't just sound good enough, it was good enough, while costing a fraction of the price and taking up 0 additional floor space. The displacement was systemic. The mid to late 2000s saw the rise of online retail and the decline of the brick-and-mortar stereo showroom. When a customer could go to Amazon or a review site and compare a $300 soundbar that took 5 minutes to set up against a $3,000 Bose Lifestyle System that required a professional installer and specialized cabling, the choice became mathematical. The Bose brand, which had spent decades building a reputation as the premium authority in living room audio, found itself competing in a market that no longer valued the lifestyle console. They had successfully changed the American listener's behavior. They had taught them to value space over fidelity, and in doing so, they had accidentally paved the way for the very product that would render them obsolete. The showroom went quiet. The catalog started to shrink. The specialized Bose demo kiosks in malls began to feel like relics of a previous decade. The proprietary cables that had been wired into the drywalls of American homes were now liabilities, turning the permanent audio setup into an abandoned, unupgradable anchor. The decline had moved from a small crack to a structural failure.